Hey there everybody, PTPOP here on a beautiful Friday morning here in the Icelandic world of Cleveland, Ohio. It is 8:52 in the morning on August 8th, 2025, and it is a beautiful 79 degrees here. It's a partly cloudy day, and it's just an absolutely gorgeous morning, and I'm going for a walk. And at that, I take you all along with me. The other day I was thinking about my time, the time I did working in call centers. And believe it or not, there was a time when I was proud to work in a call center. And I was proud to drive into the city and work for a big corporation called GT Wireless. Ooh, my phone fell over. Yeah. Oh shit. What the hell happened there? Well, I don't know what happened. Am I still on? I don't know if I'm still on or not. I guess I'm live. There's some some type of weird message on my screen. But there was a time when working in a call center, my first corporate call center job, while difficult, I met some of the nicest people there. And I was friends with many of them years after working there, after the whole place shut down. And that was well over 30 years ago. That was 31 years ago. Let me see if I can fix my screen here, because I don't know if I'm still on or not. I don't know what the hell happened. I shouldn't be doing this while I'm driving. So you gotta keep the phone out of the window or the damn phone will overheat. And, that was a long time ago. The corporate world was different. Applying for jobs was different. There was no internet. People actually had to get to know one another on the floor. There was no such thing as working from home. Call centers, in a way, were in their infancy compared to what they've become today. And what I know from personal experiences, as the years went by and I started working for bigger and bigger call centers, I felt this shame. It was almost like I felt like, I was going to work at like a fast food place or something. I thought to myself, here I am, this guy with a college degree in communications, and I can't find a real job. I had good jobs at one point in my life, but after 9/11 they went away. And I felt this tremendous shame of accepting a job in a call center after a while. After a while, it became like this horrible thing, like, oh, I gotta go to work in another call center again. And okay, True Green, you parked yourself there at the stoplight. And it became a thing where, at first, I was very proud. Like, I started off at GT Wireless, and then the next big call center job I had was with Wells Fargo, and I was so proud to work for Wells Fargo. But I hadn't awakened. I hadn't discovered what a scam it all was. And I think Wells Fargo was also kind of a turning point. But I was so proud to work for Wells Fargo, one of the biggest banks in the country, especially out west. And I worked in this really nice building in North Phoenix, and I worked with, fairly professional people, and I was, doing okay on the phone. I was doing sales. I was selling a product that I believed in. I sold home equity lines of credit. And I knew all about home equity lines of credit because I had to use them. I used home equity lines of credit on 2 previous properties that I'd owned. And then the thin veneer started to be peeled away of the truth that they were hiding. I had a boss that was racist, openly racist, firing minorities. I had another boss that would openly mock me and mock people because she had some type of psychosis. They told me later on. She was gone all of a sudden. It's the only time I've ever seen a supervisor disappear from a call center. I think she was having a breakdown or something, and she just basically lost her mind. And I think one day she just went into the hospital or something. She was really loony. And I started to see how crazy it was. And I had a supervisor. I had like several supervisors. This is the first time in my life I'd ever had like 4 or 5 supervisors in the course of about 1 year. And let me see if I can turn around in this spot here. Bingo, bango, bongo. All right, everybody. And I started to see kind of how bad it was. And I think one thing that I started to feel is that, like, when I left there, I went back to school, and I still needed a job. Wells Fargo wouldn't let me work part-time, and they wouldn't let me change my hours. So I found another call center job. Because I was in college. I went back to college. And my schedule was all over the place. Some of my classes were at night. Some of them were during day. And the next bank I went to was this small regional bank in Arizona. I honestly don't even remember the name of it, but it was a hellhole. I mean, the turnover was just atrocious. It was dirty, and none of the computers worked. They had this small call center of about 100, maybe 200 people. And it was like a mismatched bunch of computer hardware. You had Dells next to Compacts. Some had Celeron processors. Some had, broken screens. It was really awful. And I started to feel this I felt really dirty at this bank working there. It was a dirty place to work. It was kind of a shady bank. They ended up getting bought out by a giant bank that was like in another country. And as I got older, and the more I realized I couldn't find anything other than call center work, I started to feel this huge shame came over me, and I was just like, ugh. And it was just like I felt like I wasn't smart, I wasn't good enough to get anything else. And it's kind of like a step above working in fast food. But then I realized as the years went by that there's nothing to be. It's not a shameful job to have. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's nothing to hide to the world what you're doing. It's not. It's really not. It's like one of the hardest jobs people will have ever. It's one of the hardest jobs people ever have, and it's a very hard job. And if you can succeed at it, you should be very proud of the fact that you actually have succeeded at it. And if you're there at least 6 months and you're not getting fired, you're successful. And if you stay a year, you're successful. And if you figured out a way to maneuver all the systems and all the information they want you to learn, and you figured out a way to pacify customers and please them and make them happy without losing your mind, it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's something to be very proud of, because you know that the average person can't do this job. You know that the average person you talk to on the phone couldn't ever survive in a call center. Most of the people we talk to in call centers, they can't even tie their own shoes. I'm sure of it. I'm sure they still live in their mother's basement and say, "Mom, come down and help me with my shoes, please. I'm trying to look at my bank bill." I'm sure of it. A lot of these people are mentally incompetent, to put it lightly. And they have no idea the horrors that each of us face on a daily basis when it comes to working in a call center. And I think a lot of us, I know I felt shame. I'm sure some of you did. Like, people ask you what you do for a living, and like, I work in a call center. I work in a call center. Most people I've told that to, they have no idea what that even is. They don't even know what that means. I've told people, my neighbors around me, like, "Oh, what did you?" Because everybody thinks I'm retired. Well, I guess technically I'm retired, but I'm not really. I mean, I don't know what I retired from. I didn't really have a career other than in call centers. The only career I really had was in music. I probably should have stuck with that. I could still do it, but it brought in music always brought in an extra $5,000 a year for me, or something like that. But not always. Some years were worse than others. It's not dependable, but and I say to my neighbors, I say, oh, I work in a call center. Like, oh, what is that? Oh, I say, where you call into the bank and somebody answers the phone and answers your questions about the bank, about your bank bill, and they're like, oh yeah, so you're one of those people. They just kind of like, especially, and the other thing was, one time, as I've told the story before, when I got laid off from WorldCom in 2001, I took a job a few months after that with a company called Arts Marketing. And Arts Marketing is basically a company that does fundraising. And I worked on a campaign where I raised money for the Cleveland Orchestra. And the Cleveland Orchestra is like, if not the top orchestra in the world, I think it's number 2 behind like I don't know, the French Philharmonic or something. I don't know. I'm not big on classical music, but it's up there. It's amazing. It's amazing group of musicians. Just, these are the top-notch elite musicians in the world. And I would get these leads, and I would this is in the old days again, where we had push-button phones, and we held the handset at our head. This is 2001, and we worked in a building downtown Cleveland, and there was nothing. It was not a shady operation. It was totally legit, completely above board. And I remember I got a lead of this lady. I won't say her name, but I called her and I didn't recognize the name. I didn't look at the leads and go, oh, I think I know this person. I looked at maybe where they lived, because if they're from my hometown, I would say, hey, I used to live there and stuff like that. I got this lady on the phone and I told her my name. I told her my full name. She's like, Pete Tompkins? I go, yeah. And she's like, hi, it's, let's say her name is Mrs. Smith or something. It's Mrs. Smith, your 3rd grade teacher. And I'm like, and I swear to you, I had completely forgotten about this woman. No offense to this woman if she's still alive or happens to see me, but I hadn't thought about 3rd grade, like the actual class and the teacher. Most of us put 3rd grade and all this grade school stuff behind us and block it out, because I hated school. I didn't like school. But this teacher was very nice. She was a very nice teacher, very nice lady. And once she said her name, her face came rushing back into my memory, and I remembered her right away. And I'm like, oh, hi, how you doing? And she's like, good. Let me ask you a question. What are you doing this? Is everything okay? I'm like, all of a sudden, if I could have crawled under the desk from shame and humiliation, I would have. I was just so like, I'd never thought of it that way before. I was so proud of myself. Here I am working for the Cleveland Orchestra, I wasn't working for them directly, but I'm raising money for this prestigious orchestra in the country in an office building, and it was it looked shady inside, but it wasn't. It was decent people trying to make ends meet. And I'm like, oh, I'm just, I'm in between jobs, and I took this job. And she's like, oh, okay. And I don't remember the results of the call, but she asked me as if I was a felon. Like, what are you doing? Like, I had fallen on hard times, and I should be doing something better with my life. And actually, that's probably the first time. That was the first time that I felt shame of working in a call center. But if the general public really knew the amount of skill you have to work in a call center, even just for one day, the amount of skill, determination, intestinal fortitude, strength, mental stability, you have to be a strong person to do that job. It is a very high-skilled job, but they downplay it. The corporate world downplays it because they want people to think they're not worth it. They want people to think, well, I guess I'll work for $15 an hour. I guess this is the best I can do. The same thing they do with McDonald's. But you really have to be organized. You have to be very organized mentally. You have to have a good memory. You have to have tremendous verbal skills. You have to know how to deal with people in a professional manner and be able to juggle multiple things. Sometimes today they've got people doing, you're not only are you handling a phone call, you're also doing chat at the same time, and you've got to go between those two. And if the general public only knew the stress that you're put under by both the customers and the management of any call center, and the amount of information you have to consume within a very short period of time and training, and then go out there and regurgitate it in a coherent manner. Guys, we do the, what do they call it in the Army? The grunt work. We do the grunt work of the corporations. And there's, it's a very high skilled job, and each and every one of you should be proud. Whether you're a telemarketer or you're selling magazines for Dial America or doing inbound for some bank or whatever, it's a very hard job, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. You should be filled with pride. I know it, and now what I'm saying doesn't contradict anything, because we know how hard it is. And if I managed to stay like 4 years at Wells Fargo, but I kind of enjoyed that job. I enjoyed some of the people around me, and everybody was professional. And this is back when people still had to get kind of dressed up for work. People wore ties. There was some professional decorum. There was one woman I worked with who was an absolute slob. She was an older woman who wore like sweatpants in, and she had t-shirts on, and she always had like food on her face. But when you talked to her, she was a brilliant, very smart woman, and she knew her job. She had been there years. And she was one of the well-respected reps on the floor, even though she looked like she just crawled out from underneath a bed or something. She was an amazing rep, and everybody went to her for advice. And you've got to understand, there's nothing to be ashamed about. As I said in another video, and as I said to my viewer at TRG, I don't know if you're watching today, that you can succeed at this job if you make up your mind you're going to. A lot of it's mental. Over the years, it got to me, it beat me down, because I'd always go in feeling positive like this, and I'd go, today I'm gonna have a great day, and then I'd walk in, I get that tap on my shoulder, and then the supervisor say, hey, can you come over to my cubicle, and I want to listen to a call with you. It's like, oh fuck, they found another call that I screwed up. And it was always like, it wasn't me being paranoid, that's just the way it was. You didn't even have a moment to breathe where you could even pat yourself on the back. You might have one good day, and then the next day they'd always find something wrong with your numbers. So be proud that you work in a call center. Don't be, I don't know if any of you feel the shame like I did, especially after I talked to my 3rd grade teacher. And I tried to find her, and she still lives in the hometown where I grew up. I tried to find her. A friend of mine from 3rd grade, a woman I graduated from high school with, sent me what she thought was her email address, but it turned out it was either an email address or a phone number, and she didn't own that same email address or anything anymore. And I think this woman wasn't trying to be mean. I think she expected more out of me. I think she, kind of from what she probably thought of, the grimy telemarketer calling, outbound. And why wasn't I doing better with my life is kind of what her attitude was. And honestly, I never really had any goals or aspirations. I never did. I didn't. The only thing I ever wanted to do was be a musician. That's all I ever wanted to do. There's nothing else. Or work in radio. I wanted to work in radio or be a musician. And I just never pursued the radio thing. This is the closest thing I ever had to radio. But I played live in front of people for 30 years. And, it just got stupid after a while. But other than that, I didn't have a goal to become a CEO. I didn't dream of becoming an architect or an accountant or a doctor. I never had any goals or aspirations. I've never enjoyed most of my jobs I've ever had. I've never looked forward to them. Like a lot of people say, oh, I love my job, but maybe not today, but back in the day, people just seem to be so happy to put on a suit and tie and jump in their car and drive 50 miles to work and sit in a glass building. I thought it was romantic at first, but then after you run into all the bullshit in a corporation, it's like there's nothing fun about it. Actually, the best job I ever had was working in in a factory. But anyway, she probably thought, oh, Pete must have fallen on hard times, and he's a bum like his dad or something, because everybody knew about my dad, and I'm still not a falling down drunk. A fat chick on a crotch rocket. Now you don't see that every day, only here in Cleveland. That girl's got to weigh 250 pounds. Like the rolls of fat are just rippling off the side of that saddle. What the hell? All right, well, I gotta give her credit for having the courage to step into a pair of tight sweatpants and jump on a crotch rocket. So if you feel shame, if you feel embarrassed when you tell your friends and relatives that you work in a call center, don't feel embarrassed. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. You should be proud of the job, especially if you've stayed at the job and not gotten fired. Because if you're one of the few that survived, like I said, it's like hitting the beaches of Normandy in World War II. There's only a few people. When you hit that beach, and those beaches of call center training, there's only a few of you are going to be left after about 6 months, just like when you go into war. It's a battle, it's a war. And not many people can hack it. You either get fired, or the customers chew you up and spit you out and you quit, and things like that. So there's no shame in being in a call center up, and I urge each of you to still work at it or thinking of doing it. Once you accept that offer, be proud. Number one, you've got a job. You probably will have health benefits. And honestly, if you can manage to wrap your head around that job and not let it get to you, you can do it. There's nothing you can't do. It's not going to kill you. But I have to admit, there's a couple times in my last call center job where I just was like, my heart was just pounding in my chest, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack because I was just getting so stressed out. And, I always had to back away from it. I had to log off the phone for a second, go to the bathroom, and just step away from it. And they'd say, where were you? You weren't on your phones. What's wrong with you? Your call handle time is going to be screwed up, like for sure. So don't feel shame, or try not to. I know I can say don't do it, but, think of how much you've learned, how much you've accomplished, how much information you've had to consume. And be proud of yourself. Be proud that you work there, and because you know that the people in your family that might question whether you've fallen apart hard times because you're doing that job. Nowadays, most people are lucky to have a job, from what I can tell. And I'm going to go for my walk now. And hang in there if you're working in a call center. But be proud. Be proud of whatever it is you're doing. Unless it's an illegal call center, and unless you're ripping people off over the phone. Like I know there's some people that do that, especially out in India, they do that. But I'm sure most of you are doing legitimate work, if not all of you. So, all right, guys, let me know if you felt shame working in a call center, how it's affected you and your mental health. Let me know in the comments. I'll talk to y'all later. Hasta la vista, baby.